Thank you for coming to hang out with us. This is Gain and Glow, a happy lifestyle podcast with me, Vanessa.
And me, Crystal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
I say that loosely. I don't know. I feel like every day is like, yeah, I feel good. And by the end of the day, I'm like, I don't feel good. And I feel like I've been leaning into my emotions, I think, more lately. And so I'm trying to be like, well, overall, I'm good.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I had a rough week last week. And that's kind of how I felt, where I was like, well, overall, generally, looking at the whole picture, I'm doing well. It's good. Things are good. Well, why don't you hit us with a dope quote? Let's see how good things are.
Yeah. In a goal to be positive, I selected a comedian.
Yes.
Yeah, Jim Carrey, who needs no introduction, I don't think, at this point.
No. You know who Jim Carrey is. It's that one. It's the one that you know about.
That one.
I'm sure there's other, like, James Carreys out there who are like, it's not me. Somebody's like, my Uncle Jim? Or the... No. It's the famous one. It's the one that we all know.
So Jim Carrey said in his pretty famous speech that he gave at a college, I can't even remember what college right now. I'm sorry. It's
it's too early for that kind of pop quiz.
Yeah. Okay, Jim Carrey dope quote. Fear is going to be a player in your life, but you get to decide how much. Boom. Short and sweet.
Boom. It's such a wise, it's simple, like it's a simple thing to say and to understand, but it's so wise. It's so wise. Fear can either run your life or it can just be one of those things that you like embrace and move forward. It's funny though, because it starts to make more sense, I think, the older you get or the more real life gets when we start actually feeling real fear about real things.
Yeah, definitely.
But today, in today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about fear. Well, first, fear of COVID, which propelled us to get the vaccine. And we'll talk a little bit about me already getting my first shot and you having one scheduled. And then we'll talk about a little bit about how fear plays with our anxieties and how you and I have pretty much, like, through trying to be positive, we've really been trying to identify what type of fear our anxieties are playing off of and how we can counteract that, which I think it's super important to a healthy, happy life because your brain controls everything.
Exactly. Our last episode, you had scheduled your vaccine, but now you've had your first shot. Which shot did you get?
So I got the Pfizer, and I got the first shot. Obviously, we just said that. I got the first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, and I did it here in the town that I live in. I went to one of the drive-up events, and so we just got in the car and drove to the little, like, it was like a parking lot where they had cones and lanes and stuff set up and, like, these huge tent booths. And so you just got in the lane in your queue, basically, and you filled out the paperwork. And we had already gone online through our county and looked at the eligibility and all of the details. And at first, it was, like, super confusing. I'm like, I don't know if I'm eligible. Some of these terms were very general. But then once we got through the website, it was like, it matched us up with the whole appointment. We scheduled it on the website, everything. We filled out all the paperwork and everything on the website. And then it, like, texted us updates and all this cool stuff. So when we got there, we just had to, like, fill out a little bit of general information on, like, these clipboards they gave us through our windows. And then you just, like, slowly drove up like like a fast food drive-thru. Then we went into the little tent, like, you park under the tent, and they're like, Here's all the details. They have to like warn you about certain things. And then we went to the next little tent in front of it, and these nurses came around, and we each got our shot at the same time, and it was just like boop boop, in and out. And then they ask you to wait 15 minutes in case you have like an allergic reaction. And since I have an autoimmune condition that causes allergic reactions easily, I was a little bit like nervous, but I felt totally fine. Immediately after the shot, I felt totally fine. And then the soreness in my arm set in a little bit. And later in that day, it was kind of a rough day in the morning. I had a really rough morning, so I was feeling a little bit emotionally fatigued. I lost my dog, so not like he passed away. So I was feeling emotionally fatigued. So I think a lot of like I had a little bit of a headache and I felt a little bit like congested and stuff. But I think it was actually from crying.
Yeah,
and not necessarily from the shot. Yeah, it was like first thing in the morning, and then I was like, well, we still have to go get our shots. So the next day is when I felt a little bit more of the actual effects. And it honestly, it felt like I had done a pretty hardcore arm day the prior, and that I was a little bit hungover. Like, that's the feeling that I got. I was slightly, like, sweaty upon my brow and hairline and, like, a little bit kind of fevery chilled. And then I felt tired. That was it. That was totally it. After that, I felt totally fine. My arm was a little bit sore the next day, but nothing compared to what it feels like when I, like, box for an hour. So, 10 out of 10, I recommend. And because I went through the county and everything, and we signed up, now what they'll do is they'll just automatically set us up to get notifications of when it's time to get our second shot, because you get your second Pfizer like 21 days or 28 days. I think Moderna's 28, Pfizer's 21. So they'll just tell us when it's time, and then it'll be the same thing again. We just drive up, get the second shot, and then bada bing, bada boom. COVID safe.
Well, that's exciting.
So, do you know which one you're getting? Have they told you?
Yeah, I'm getting the Pfizer one down at OHSU tomorrow.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, first thing in the morning, which is nice because, like, we're recording this on a Saturday, so I'll get it first thing in the morning on Sunday, and then I can just rest all day and not have to worry about anything. And then I scheduled my husband to get one. He's going to do a drive-through one at the PDX airport.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, next week. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I had signed up for notifications through, like, Oregon's website, and it's funny, they started sending me emails about different locations that they would give you options to go to within like 48 hours. You had to select if you're going to do their appointment, or else you'd like lose your spot. But I went on to OHSU's website, and they have a list of all the different locations and dates and times that you can like get in like your region. So I was hoping that, like, for where I live, I could have gone to, like, the stadium down the street or or somewhere closer. But, yeah, OHSU is not very far from me. So I'm very excited about that. The airport's pretty far. Like, it's the other side of town.
Yeah. That's almost Washington.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I was scheduling us both at the same time, but by the time I scheduled mine and refreshed, all the appointments for the whole day were gone. Like, for like the next few days. Like, I had to schedule him for the following week. And so, like, at 9 a.m. they post on the top of their page that they don't release the schedules till 9 a.m. So you have to, like, click through all the boxes, saying, like, your date of birth, all that, so that you can even see the schedule. And so then as soon as you see the schedule, you got to click something, because sometimes you click a time frame and it's like, oh, sorry, those appointments are gone. And you're like, the page just loaded. What do you mean the appointments are gone?
So, what's crazy about that to me is, so where you live up in the, the general greater Portland metro area, I think is what people actually refer to it as. I'm hearing that a lot. I'm hearing a lot of people who want the vaccine are having a hard time actually getting it because the appointments are going so fast. But down where I live in the central part of Oregon, when I checked the website and saw the appointments and stuff, there was like 10 different time slots, and each time slot had an allocated amount of vaccines left, and there was like hundreds in each time slot. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hit the sweet spot. I'm gonna be able to find a time slot because there's like hundreds of vaccines, and I'm assuming people are gonna scoop these up. Well, I had to go talk to my husband and be like, hey, you qualify too. We need to do this together. Plain and simple. I don't want to do this alone. Let's do this together. And I was like, but you need to make your mind up fast because I got to get back to the website and make sure I snag up one of these appointments before they go. Well, it took us like 10, 15 minutes to discuss it and agree on what time and all of that. Then I go back. I'm like, well, let's just hope that time frame's still open. Go back to the site. Literally nothing had changed. All the same amount of vaccines available. So like, they're not flying off the shelves here, apparently. I was so excited. I was like, great. We'll get 2 o'clock. We're going to drive up. Boop, boop, boop. 200 available. Great. We'll take 2 of those.
That's so funny, too, because you're only like, what, an hour and a half, 2 hours away from me?
Yeah. Yes. It's just so a little bit south. Mm-hmm. But I'm really, really excited to hear about how yours goes, and you'll have to, like, obviously tell us about it next week.
I know. I just, it's so funny because it's like, I don't even want to go back to the gym. I don't want to go back to a movie theater. Like, I just want to have, like, barbecues with my friends without us all feeling anxious.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of my anxieties, I've always had anxiety. I've had it since I can remember. I remember being like 5 and feeling what now I know is like anxiety. But recently during this pandemic, it's spiked so much, and I've been trying to like address it. And I know we've talked about this before, and you've been doing the same thing, trying to address yours. And I realized a lot of my anxieties are based in my fears, and my fear has been controlling a lot of my actions and my decisions because it's what triggers my anxiety the most. My fear of like mortality, my fear of everything. And the fear of COVID has caused my anxiety to just almost triple. And it's crazy how much just getting the vaccine, like the first one, has already started to quell so much of that fear. And my anxiety, like, it's helping. My anxiety jumped to a new target of fear, but now it's helping me be like, okay, look, obviously still have to be safe. Obviously we're not fully vaccinated yet, but I don't feel as closed in now. I see a light at the end of the tunnel where I know we'll never go back to like normalcy, but I see a light as far as, like you said, being around friends without feeling anxious or without worrying that I'm potentially going to be the reason that somebody else gets sick, you know, even if I'm not sick. So it's helping with my anxiety just getting the shot. I didn't even think it would make that big of a difference, but it really has. It really has.
That's awesome. It's so funny because I feel like in the beginning, I was like, okay, well, I just need to stay home. That's fine. Like, whatever. And I just need to clean a little bit more. I just need to be a little more cautious about my day to day, which is like, that's fine. And then the middle towards this time period has just like elevated anxiety of how everybody is thinking about it differently and taking different precautions or, you know, wanting to do stuff quicker than I want to do stuff and things like that. And then case counts rising, and then everything, you know, it's just like over time it just feels like it's increased, but then we're still supposed to like just live normally as much as you can, and you're like,
yeah,
that's not, yeah, no, that's stressful. It's stressful. And it's like it's I think I got a little scared after like 1 year, like, well, when do we get a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel? Like, I didn't think that the vaccine would be available as soon as it was, because they were, you know, And the president was saying around June, everyone would be able to get it. And then here in Oregon, it's April, and we're actually able to get an appointment and everything. So that's really exciting. And then, you know, it's funny because, like, my family members have been, like, chomping at the bit to, like, visit and everything. And I'm like, you can come up here, but nothing's open. And I'm still, like, an oyster in a shell. Like, I'm like, I haven't left my house in a year, so. And so I think I kind of have a little bit of social anxiety, too, that I didn't used to have. Like, even my brother lives down the street. Like, I've only seen him a handful of times this last year. And it's partially because he lives with a house full of people that all have different jobs and all go different places and everything. And so I'm like, there's no point in, like, taking a risk, you know? It's like, but, we had him come sit outside and, like, chit chat and stuff. So that was nice. But inching my way back into society.
Right? I saw a joke on the internet, of course, I saw on probably on Facebook, where it was like, I don't know if I'll be able to go back into society because I'm basically like a feral animal now. And I kind of feel that. Like, there's certain things where I'm like, well, first of all, working in an office and a cubicle is totally a man-made construct. So I just don't think that creatively that is conducive for me.
I've had a year to reflect on this, and I don't want to be in a cubicle again.
Yeah. I've considered the pros and cons, and it just doesn't seem like the thing for me. But it's interesting because with all of the new anxieties, and I think what it is it's literally just a lack of reprieve from those constant decisions, the constant risk assessment, the constant pressure from other people, the constant imbalance of, like, people's response is so cumbersome in longevity. So it's like, it's so intense. And it's funny because I've inadvertently been leaning on some of the tools I've developed over the years, like listening to music, and realizing how much that, like, controls the way I feel, and how I can, like, use that as my way to calm down or get myself pumped back up or kind of work through stuff. And it has been a crash course in redefining coping mechanisms. And of course, I don't know if they're healthy, but leaning on those has been crucial.
Definitely. I think you described the anxiety portion so well, because it's like the lack of reprieve, as you said. It's like that kind of creates it compounds and creates, like, a level of fear. It's like now you're being fearful because you've been so mindful of everything that you're doing every day, but you're also constantly worried about the future. And it's like, fear is like, you know, thinking about the past, or, like, you know, living in the future. It's distracting your mind, you know, from what's happening. But then you also think, well, this, that, and the other. And it's like all the possible risks, like, create fear. But there are that many risks out in the day-to-day. Like, I mean, I don't remember the statistic, but it's like a high number of people get in car accidents a mile away from their house. Well, it's not because your house is unsafe, but it's because it's the place that you go to every day. You're always leaving and going back to. Mm-hmm. So, like, a possibility of something happening during that time period is, like, it's pretty likely. So,
it's statistics.
Yeah, and then you have to, like, reframe it, because, like, you know, so many times in the news, the statistics can be like, you know, 1% of people have this happen, or it could be like 99% of people have this happen. Like, the way you look at it, you know, kind of creates, like, a thought process about it. And like you said, like, I've been trying to find ways too to pull my mind out of the negative thought loops and fear loops, because I don't have control over everything. I probably had some more fear based on the fact that I feel less in control than I did before. But in the same aspect, when I change my mindset, like I look at it and I go, well, I do have a little bit more control. Like I actually get to be at home, which means I'm spending less money on gas, I'm spending less money on like food and stuff, which actually like depends, right? Like you can either spend less money on food or you spend way more money on food because you're like, oh, I have to be safe at home. I'll just have Grubhub come over. I don't even have to go, you know? But then at the same time, I'm like, oh, I have to move my body more now because I'm not actually leaving the house and everything. And so it's been a weird struggle of like a new lifestyle that like I haven't had to experience before. And like leaning on things like, you know, music and podcasts. Like I've noticed that the more I listen to upbeat music, the more likely I'm able to like want to stand at my standing desk and kind of like wiggle a little bit, like dance, I wouldn't say dancing, but like bouncing around and stuff and enjoying my time at my desk. Whereas if I'm like sitting in silence and hearing all the noise of the house and my roommates and stuff, it's like, it would just stress me out. And there's no point in me sitting in that stress. So it's like put headphones on, put music on, listen to a podcast, write down notes when they come up. Like I've been taking notes on podcasts that give like, you know, like an advice or a quote or something that I like so that I can remember it, so I can refer to it later and remember like, yeah, I did like that thought process. I want to think more like that. And like leaning on things that give your mind like a place to give its attention so that you can focus on things for yourself and not so much on everything happening around you that you have no control over.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think people talk enough about how anxiety can present itself as intrusive thoughts and thought circles. And those are, I mean, a lot of people, they talk about anxiety and it's personified as like nervousness or, you know, these like physical representations of it. But the mental representation of it is really your brain convincing you of something that may or may not be true, but is not conducive in that moment to like anything. So having the ability to change that conversation, to break that thought cycle and to move your brain into a different space is so helpful for me, especially like music, like you said. If I'm listening to upbeat music, I'm huge on old school house music like DJ Irene. I'm also super into EDM, like the new stuff. I love anything that has a hard beat, not a lot of like stuff going on as far as lyrics when I'm working, because then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get myself real pumped up instead of feeling so stressed out and amped up about what's bothering me. I try to motivate myself to be like, you know what? Stand up, dance around a little bit, smile, like do all of these things that we tell everyone else to do, because it really does help move through some of those anxieties. And then also when I'm in a headspace like I was, you know, this last week where I'm kind of navigating like grief in a new way and then changes and stuff like that. Sometimes I just need to hear a song that like touches my soul and makes me feel heard and seen. And I've told you this before. I just told you this. One of my my favorite song of all time, which I'm sure I'm going to get made fun of for this, is Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve. And it's because, well, I like the violins. I've said that before. I like the violins in it, or, you know, but there's a lyric that says, I need to hear some sounds that represent the pain in me, I think is what he says. And it's just so appropriate for music for me. Like, it's just one of those things where I just need to hear it and feel it and move through that thought or that feeling with the music and then pull myself slowly in a different direction. So sometimes I'll even curate a playlist where I'll start with some lower, like slower, more sad kind of songs because I'm feeling that kind of way. But then I slowly move it into more of like, well, this one's kind of sad, but it's got a pretty good beat. And then I end up listening to EDM and I pull myself out of kind of that like mental loop of thinking negative, that's not getting me anywhere.
I love that. And it's so funny too. I've been I tend to find songs and then listen to them over and over and over till I can't stand them. And
yes.
So my current playlist is all of those songs, and I'm like over them. And so I've been trying to listen to new music, and then sometimes I'm not in the mood for it because I want to just focus, and I feel like part of finding new music is listening to new music and kind of pulling your attention into the music, which is great, but also can cause me stress if I'm actually trying to focus on something else. So if I'm like hearing something I don't like, I'm like, ugh, a skip. Like I won't even give the rest of the song a chance. Like skip. So I'll spend all this time skipping. So I know I always talk about the Headspace app, but they've done a new thing where John Legend is like they're in charge of their music now. He's like in charge of getting, I forget what his title is, but he's in charge of getting like their whole music section going. So they bring in different artists to create different like almost kind of synthesized sounds and beats. If you've listened to Headspace is on Netflix right now, which I actually haven't even watched it yet. I know. But I am sure that some of the music and tones that they use are probably in the Netflix documentary about it. Because they use the same beats and tones and stuff like through all their stories and everything that they do. But they have a section for focus. And it's focus music. So it's different artists that create different beats and stuff. And so I've been listening to different playlists to try and see if I like any of them to listen to focus. So far, I only like one, but but what I noticed that they do is they do a beat where it's like they keep a beat for like 10 seconds and then they re-loop it and then they do it another 10 seconds and then they might re-loop it a third time and then they switch the beat. So you kind of like your brain just gets used to this little wave of sound and then they glide you into a new wave of sound because the repetitive sounds and words and stuff in songs that you like is what can just help you focus. Because if it's not something new and you've listened to it over and over and over again, your brain is just used to the sound and will just like allow you to focus on other things, which is fantastic. Which I think is why, I think part of the reason why I always recommend classical music for studying. I think there's literally a playlist called Classical Music for Studying. And I
there is
Amazon Music or Spotify, but I always just say play classical music, and it's because it's like all the songs. It's like the songs themselves like tell a story without having lyrics, and having non-lyric music will help me focus pretty easy too. So I've been trying to lean into that more because when I'm just sitting at my desk like bored, not wanting to do what I'm doing, like I have to do something, or else I'll just think about all the things that I could be, shouldn't be, would be doing.
Yeah, I read an article. Well, first of all, I have to say this. If you're looking into more like instrumental and non-lyrical music, you have to look into Explosions in the Sky, a song called Loud. And then there's a song called Loud Pipes by Rat-a-Tat, I think is how you pronounce their name.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But I read an article about how video game music, like the music they use for video games, mostly RPGs, is meant to increase focus through like the composition of the sounds. Like it's specifically created and composed to increase your focus. And I love Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, Oblivion, the newest one that's like Elder Scrolls Online. I love these games. Love them. You can actually find their soundtracks on Spotify. And they're amazing for working. Like, they're amazing. I love listening to the Skyrim playlist, and it's all the songs from the game, but it's calming, and it's kind of the same thing where it doesn't distract me with the lyrics and all this stuff. It's just background noise to help kind of guide me through, and I don't like to be left alone in silence for too long. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, Skyrim does have really good music. My husband plays that a lot, so like I like that music. But yeah, that's so funny. Explosions in the Sky. I kind of forgot about them, but they're so good. I think I listened to them back in like just after high school.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Yeah, it's so good. Music. And you're saying about how those playlists are on Spotify. I didn't know that they had audiobooks on Spotify. And so
yes.
I don't know if I had mentioned it previously, probably not. I've been listening to the Sherlock Holmes books on Spotify, read by this older, I think British, Scottish man with an accent. And and I love listening to him just because he tries to do like the female voices and everything too. So it's like, sir, and he's just this old man voice. It's so cute. I thought like, I was like, at first I was like, I don't like this. Like he's doing every voice, blah, 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 whatever, negative nonsense. And then I listened to a different, narrator. And he sounded awful. It was like he didn't know how to read a book. And I was like, I want my old man back. And he did read most of the books on Spotify. So I really enjoyed that because even though I don't always pay attention to the story, it's like a mystery story that has, however many characters, however many visits, and then wraps up at the end. And if you just... like with Sherlock Holmes, if he wraps it up for you at the end, you don't even need to listen to the whole book.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think those have been like the ways lately that I've been trying to, combat some of this anxiety and kind of get back into like a more healthier mindset about my own goals and what I want, and not so much about what's happening in the world around me that I can't control. Music, podcasts, audiobooks, writing stuff down when I like having positive things, and then trying to, actually journal and fill out like my calendar and stuff. Even though I don't have events to go to or anything, it helps me keep myself accountable to my goals, which I still need to work on no matter what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. No matter how fearful we are, our goals have to take center stage. We will navigate life better. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you find your podcast to stay up to date with our new episodes every Wednesday.
Also, head on over and follow us on Facebook and Instagram and say hello while you're there. And don't forget to drink some water, take a deep breath. You've got this.